Thanks for watching. A big focus on vaccinations here in Ontario now that the first doses are going to more people. Anyone 80 or older can get a shot in Chatham-Kent and Windsor-Essex. It could be going faster though, but the supply just isn't coming in fast enough. Jacob Barker has been crunching the numbers on vaccinations in both communities. Jacob, how are things looking?
Well, Chris, it is clear we are bound by the supply of vaccine we're receiving. And looking at both Windsor-Essex and Chatham-Kent, we see two very different pictures. Here in Windsor-Essex, we've administered nearly 28,000 doses of vaccine since we got our first shipment in December. More than 11,000 of those second shots. Bearing in mind that Chatham-Kent's population is about a quarter of Windsor-Essex counties, and their vaccination effort only began at the end of January. As of last Thursday, it had only vaccinated 914 people. However, over the weekend after its vaccination clinic, it managed to get vaccinations into 2,000 arms, more than 2,000 arms, for both healthcare workers and 80-plus-year-olds. In a clinic being put on by Windsor Regional Hospital for healthcare workers and frontline workers, it says it can give about 650 shots a day on weekdays and 350 a day on weekends. In addition, on the first day for 80-plus-year-olds, there were 144 shots given out. At that rate, it would take months just to do seniors, whereas in Chatham-Kent, the medical health officer there says he thinks they could get all seniors over 80 done in a week or two. Right now, both health authorities say they could be doing much more, but it depends on supply.
Like I said at the beginning, the limiting factor is the number of vaccines that we're receiving. So we're prepared right now, like we're planning to be able to administer up to 10,000 vaccines per day, but we don't have 10,000 vaccines per day. We're getting 4,000 a week right now, and that's what we're administering. So everything that we're doing right now is to administer the vaccines that we're getting. If we got 10,000, we would be giving 10,000.
So when, I guess, is the big question here, will those vaccines start arriving in those numbers?
Well, Chatham-Kent wouldn't say exactly how much vaccine they are getting at the moment due to security concerns. But in a call today, its medical health officer says he believed they could vaccinate all the seniors in the community in a week or two. Windsor Regional Hospital says it's getting 4,000 doses of Pfizer vaccine per week, and it expects to remain at that level until about mid-March. That's when things should start moving faster.
Based on what they're expecting to receive federally with regards to, like, you know, I don't know the exact number that they're saying, but, you know, millions and millions of vaccines coming in at that point, then we would expect to be prepared to be able to ramp up at that point.
So, Chris, there's no shortage of interest in people wanting to get the vaccine. Windsor's health unit says about 12,000 seniors have signed up to get a shot.
Thanks for this, Jacob. CBC's Jacob Barker live tonight. And Canada is now just hours away from getting its first batch of the AstraZeneca Oxford doses. Well, Health Canada has already said it's safe for all adults. An independent panel of experts says that the vaccine should not be used for seniors just yet. That's because there's not enough clinical data about how effective it is for people who are 65 years and older. But as David Cochran reports, there's growing real-world evidence which could change that.
The first doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine will arrive on Wednesday from India, bringing new supply and new uncertainty.
The conflicting advice between Health Canada and experts on the immunization task force is concerning.
There's no disagreement as to whether the vaccine is safe, but there are questions as to whether it is the most effective choice for people over 65. So the immunization task force recommends for now it be used solely on younger people.
It has been shown to be effective for people under 65. That's been shown by several of European studies that have been done because the AstraZeneca vaccine has been used quite extensively there.
Don't read their recommendations as sort of static. They will update as needed.
Canada's chief medical officer says there's growing data the vaccine is effective for people 65 and older. The United Kingdom is using it widely. France has approved it for people up to 75. Dr. Tam suggests Canada's guidance could eventually change, but for now, the early doses could be given to young people.
There's an opportunity, potentially, for a group of people who wouldn't have got the vaccine till, a couple of months later to have the opportunity to get it.
Canada is set to receive more than 20 million AstraZeneca doses, most of them in the spring and summer. By then, even more data will be available, allowing for greater clarity as to whether it's a good option for people over 65. David Cochran, CBC News, Ottawa.
Dozens of public school staff in Windsor-Essex are preparing for their first Black Staff Equity Alliance meeting. Now, the alliance is new, created to take action against anti-Black racism in public schools. Two of the founders shared their vision for the alliance today.
We are in an alliance and a collective that wants to bring together all staff at the Greater Essex. So elementary, secondary, custodial staff, secretarial staff, IT staff, educators, support staff, all of us, under the umbrella of working together to create systemic changes that will allow us to further anti-Black racism initiatives.
I'm sure most people understand the historical perspectives of anti-Black racism, especially within schools over many centuries. But really what spearheaded a lot of this was the things that happened in May of 2020 and the Black Lives Matter movement. And really that was the kind of basis of where it started. We do know that there are gaps and there are ways that we can actually utilize the kind of who we are and what we have and our experiences and our professional experiences to make a difference within the organization, not just for students, but also for staff as well.
We've all have been doing the work in our classrooms and in the different positions that we do have. And I think the opportunity, again, to work in partnership with so many different people. Like, I'm really excited to be able to know that, we're going to be working with FO, we're going to be working with our elementary counterparts, we're going to be working with all different types of staff members. I think that's what makes me most excited, because the strength in numbers, right? And all of us having the opportunity to voice our opinions and to decide on the initiatives we want to take on. That's the most exciting part.
It really is about action and taking action. And not just talking about change, but actually ensuring that change is occurring through these different initiatives.
Now, while other school boards don't have an alliance group like this one, the Catholic English School Board says it has an Equity and Inclusion Advisory Committee to create a more inclusive environment. It says it's also partnered up with other groups to help with the local Black community. Public French School Board says it has a 4-year strategic plan. That includes initiatives that will continue to foster equitable and inclusive schools, while the Catholic French Board recently hired a human rights and equity advisor who's expected to raise awareness and training while creating a fair school environment. FCA pleaded guilty in a plot to pay off Detroit union officials. Yesterday, the company admitted to giving money to United Auto Workers leaders, doing it to win concessions in negotiations covering thousands of factory workers. This follows a series of guilty pleas from UAW officials who were showered with more than $3 million in cash. There were other valuable items, too, over an 8-year period. The acting U.S. attorney says FCA violated federal labor law and undermined the collective bargaining process. They'll have to pay a $30 million fine to the government. FCA is now part of Stellantis after a merger with PSA Peugeot. FBI Director Christopher Wray testified today at a Senate hearing about the mob that stormed the U.S. Capitol, leaving 5 people dead, including a police officer. He says the January 6th attack was a clear act of domestic terrorism and defended the Bureau's handling of the intelligence leading up to it. Freelance journalist Giles Gibson reports from Washington.
Almost 2 months since a mob forced its way into the heart of America's democracy, FBI Director Christopher Wray testified to senators at the scene of the crime, many of them eyewitnesses to the violence on the 6th of January.
I was appalled that you, our country's elected leaders, were victimized right here in these very halls. That attack, that siege, was criminal behavior, plain and simple, and it's behavior that we, the FBI, view as domestic terrorism.
As for the claim by supporters of former President Donald Trump that members of the anti-fascist group Antifa were somehow involved, Wray said there's no evidence to support it. US law enforcement have charged more than 300 people in connection with the Capitol attack, and the investigation continues. But the Bureau's director told senators that domestic extremism was a growing threat well before the 6th of January.
We have significantly grown the number of investigations and arrests in the category that you're asking about. It was up to about 1,400 by the end of last year, and it's up to about 2,000 now.
Senators also wanted to know why the attack wasn't stopped after an FBI field office warned of potential violence at the Capitol just a day before. The FBI director said the reports contained raw, uncorroborated intelligence, but that it was shared with other law enforcement agencies. Last week, the former chief of the Capitol Police said that was the case, but also insisted that senior leadership never saw it. Congressional officials say hearings could go on for more than a year as US lawmakers try to learn lessons from the 6th of January and stop it from ever happening again. Giles Gibson for CBC News, Washington.
That feeling of spring is in the air, and with it, something new about to bloom in Jackson Park, a $7.2 million greenhouse, one that will replace the old one down at Lansbury Park.
Currently, the 11,000 square feet that we have at Lansbury is split over 7 different greenhouses, so it's very cut up and not the most efficient way of running an operation. Right now, what we currently can't do is we are unable to grow all of our planter material, whether it be the hanging baskets or the ground planters, which are very popular across the city. So right now we have to outsource and contract that out to growers. And pretty much everything that is behind me would not overwinter. So if they were not able to be moved into a greenhouse complex, they would unfortunately die. Many of the plants can't be replaced. These aren't the type of things you can go to your local garden center in the spring and simply purchase. They're expensive, they're exotic. So certainly the ability for the city to have a winter home for these plants is extremely important. Our greenhouse is not like the type of operation that people see or is reported dealing with, the vegetable crops and type of things that are going on in the Leamington greenhouses. The plants go to sleep over the night just like you and I do, so that there won't be any light disturbance or light pollution. So construction should start by the end of March, early April. And the expectation is that we will be able to complete the new greenhouse structure by the end of spring, early summer 2022. To in-house more of what we currently do will lead to some cost savings for the community, and we'll be able to provide a greater floral and horticultural ideas and look and feel for the citizens of Windsor.
We'll take a live look outside now as you see the sun starting to set, the shadows popping up on the city of Windsor tonight. Nick Sirkovich is going to join us with a look at the forecast after the break. Children's books by Dr. Seuss have been around for decades, but you won't be able to get any new copies of 6 of them. They've been taken off the market for what's being described as hurtful and wrong characters. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson has the story.
Do you like green eggs and ham? I do not like them, Sam, I am.
Between those catchy rhymes and whimsical drawings, have racially insensitive images been lurking among the pages of Dr. Seuss books? According to the late author's publisher, yes. As of today, 6 Seuss titles will no longer be published because of negative stereotypes of Asian and Black people. This professor and author says he doesn't have a problem with the decision.
There are going to be those in the United States who cry cancel culture. I wouldn't frame it in those terms. I would think of it more in terms of a product recall. You know, we have realized that there are things in these books which are damaging to the consumer, and so we are no longer going to publish them.
From books to movies to 3D exhibits, almost 30 years after his death, Dr. Seuss's estate is one of the most profitable for a deceased artist.
First of all,
this children's author and educator agrees with the decision to stop publishing the 6 books, but hopes their contents are still examined by adults.
I also, twofold, think that those books should be available for study, whether it be at a faculty of education or in like a children's literature program. They should be available for us to study, because we pull these things and we also have to avoid like the possibility of sweeping it under the rug like they didn't exist.
Inside this, just how much of an effect on Seuss's overall popularity this move will have is uncertain, but there are signs some powerful players are shifting away from him. Today is Reading Across America Day, a day chosen for Seuss's birthday. It traditionally involved U.S. presidents invoking lines and imagery from Dr. Seuss books.
It's like the Star-Bellied Sneetches, you know?
In U.S. President Joe Biden's presidential proclamation about the day, there was no mention of the author. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
Now, this pandemic has interrupted and changed life everywhere, forcing students to embrace new ways of learning, and that includes four-legged pupils. The 2 main Canadian guide dog training groups are preparing their pups for life on the other side of COVID-19. But as Stu Mills reports, finding a noisy or crowded environment, it hasn't always been easy over the past year.
Class is in session at the Canadian Centre for Guide Dogs. In fact, it never really stopped.
Oh, good girlie. Well done. Yay!
But how these guide dogs are trained has changed a lot. Trainer Ian Hadlam is letting 2-year-old Dahlia lead him around this fake construction site. Over the past year, when the pandemic has made the streets off-limit, Hadlam and other canine students like Fawn have improvised.
Find the button. Hop up, find the button. Good girl.
COVID lockdowns have forced trainers to think of creative ways to prepare the pooches for a world where traveling, shopping, and dining are possible.
All of that we want to expose them to as much as we can safely so that they think it's just a normal part of life and it doesn't throw them for a loop when they're guiding through it.
So, dogs have taken field trips here to the unusually quiet Ottawa airport. They've worked on escalators, etiquette, and outside, how to keep an eye open for crosswalks. The Canadian National Institute for the Blind runs another guide dog training centre. President Diane Bergeron says most of their puppies come from outside Canada, but they've been blocked by closed borders.
You know, we say it rains cats and dogs, but it actually doesn't. I can't produce a dog suddenly that is at the exact right age to train, nor can I just take a dog from a rescue organization and train it to be a guide dog.
Bergeron says the biggest challenge has been exposing young dogs to crowds, like on a jammed subway platform at rush hour or a day at a festival.
That's one piece that worries me as a guide dog handler myself. I'm a little bit worried that when our dogs get into those situations moving forward, they're not going to have enough of that training.
Bergeron says if need be, the animals will get some extra lessons. But both guide dog agencies say even though they'll have been trained in a pandemic, the dogs will be capable of figuring out the new normal whenever it arrives. Stu Mills, CBC News, Ottawa.
Dramatic video now of a volcano erupting in Indonesia. That is Mount Sinabung erupting, spewing hot ash into the sky. It's the volcano's first big eruption since last August. No injuries, no casualties reported, but officials are telling people to stay at least 3 kilometers away from the crater. Now the activity, it's increased since last year. It was inactive for centuries before erupting back in 2010. Joining us now for a live look at the weather is Nick Sirkovich. Nick, I don't hate to be rude, but if we could do this quickly, I'd like to go and enjoy some of the sun that we have out there right now. It's been glorious,
I'll see what I can do for you, okay? I'm going to get through it in like less than 2 minutes, I promise.
Love it.
2 degrees right now. There you go. 2 minutes, 2 degrees. That's what we're looking at. Temperatures are actually getting warmer as we head through tomorrow. You're going to like the forecast coming up in just a sec here. -3 though with the winds. Really still a little bit gusty out there. We're going to see winds start to taper off by the time we hit tomorrow, but still gusts in the neighborhood tonight of about 50 kilometers per hour. Then they sort of ease off as we head through tomorrow morning and tomorrow afternoon. And we're looking at temperatures starting to warm as well. Now some cloud cover just poking in around the Sarnia, London area there, down toward Chatham-Kent. We are looking at generally cloudy skies as we head through tomorrow. What's happening is a weak system is kind of pushing down over here, and that's going to bring with it some cloud cover and the risk for some patchy drizzle as we head through tomorrow. Now, it doesn't last long, and we're not talking about a rain event here, but the risk for some patchy drizzle for tomorrow. And that's going to continue sort of through the afternoon, and then as we head through Thursday and Friday, generally sunny skies. Actually, sunny skies pretty much taking us into the weekend, save for some cloud cover out toward the London, Kitchener area as you head through Friday. But otherwise, lots in the way of sunshine and warm temperatures, certainly for tomorrow anyway. So here's a look at your forecast heading through tonight. -3 degrees, -2 out toward Leamington. Basically the same. Wind chills of about -8. By tomorrow, we've got temperatures in the double digits around Windsor there. About a 40% chance we're going to see a few spotty showers or drizzle in the region, but not really a big rainfall event at all. Now 11 degrees there as we head through Wednesday. Temperatures do take a bit of a dip down closer to about seasonal as we head through Thursday and Friday, but lots in the way of sunshine. And you know how I know, Chris, that there's a risk of showers here? Because I just washed my car. And then I started looking at the forecast. So anyway, there you go.
No, that's okay. Maybe I'll go camping.
It always happens that way. Or
No,
leave your
enjoy it
sunroof
together.
open. That's a good one.
Those are the ways. Thanks for this, Nick.
You bet.
Now, coming up, there's a new Banksy in the world on a former prison. We'll take a look at that after the break. Almost 300 Nigerian schoolgirls, some as young as 10, filled a government conference area today, freed after being kidnapped on Friday. A few were able to talk about the experience. This 15-year-old girl says they were taken to the forest by the kidnappers, and while they were walking, they were hit with guns. Another says the kidnappers threatened to shoot anyone who didn't walk. The girls were all students at a boarding school, which have become kidnapping targets for criminal gangs. A government advisor denied a ransom was paid, but says the kidnappers had been offered amnesty for the girls' release. There's a possible new work by the UK artist Banksy, and it's drawing a crowd in England. The painting is on the wall of the former prison in the city, and as you can see, it shows a prisoner escaping over the wall using bed sheets tied to a typewriter. Some observers think that may be a reference to Oscar Wilde. Wilde was imprisoned there in 1895 over his affair with Lord Alfred Douglas. That inspired his poem, Ballad of Reading Gaol. Now, the former prison is up for sale, and there is a public campaign to turn it into an arts complex. The painting, it's also seen as supporting that. Banksy, whose work sells for millions of dollars, isn't publicly claiming credit. And archaeologists found a rare piece of Pompeii history, a ceremonial chariot with decorations cast in bronze and iron. Now, they say that the chariot's just one of a kind, almost intact, well preserved. They think it survived the eruption and the fiery destruction by being buried under the ruins of a villa that overlooked the Mediterranean. Now, archaeologists believe the chariot was used for festivals and parades, maybe even wedding processions, kind of like an ancient stretch limo. That's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. We're on social media too. You can check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We live stream the show on Facebook and Twitter as well. The Rick Mercer Report, that's up next. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.